Yeah.
So,
No, I get it.
I don't know. I need to give her a tutorial, I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Should I zoom? Oh. Okay, where is this on the little commercial break? That's so dope when I'm lost.
I know, it's so funny.
So who do you love that? Who do you do brand education for?
I work for Heavy Hitters, Mammoth Distribution.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I am cool with the brand ambassadors that are up here. There's two, I think, two different ones that I've met that have been heavy hitters. It's funny how you start to see the same ones.
Yeah.
Kind of like, develop, some rapport and stuff. So it's really cool.
You might have met me.
Since, like, we're all... I know. So the farthest that I go out towards the bay would be Napa. I work harvest in Napa.
Well, I worked in Sacramento for the first year and like the first whole year.
Shut up. Did you work colas?
Yeah. I was the account manager for colas.
We totally probably did see meet then. We probably definitely have. My hair has been many different colors. Pink, like bright pink, purple, green. I worked with Dom Pen. That was the main one for the longest. And Lola, and then now I'm with Old Pal. And they're all on break right now though. Like nobody's booking any.
Right.
But yeah, we definitely have had to meet because
That's so crazy.
I've been the main. Yeah, I've been the one that, like, I'm known. My brand has helped to grow because of me being in the demos and being in the stores and stuff. So
I wonder if maybe we wouldn't have met because of Dom Pen and Heavy Hitters, both vapes. They don't book us at the same time, but
that's true. I don't know if we would have crossed paths. That's true. Because I would work like afternoons. I would always do between like 10s and like be off by like 4. I barely did like the 4 to 7s or evenings.
Oh, okay.
I prefer that lunchtime. So I probably did like a 12 to 3, and then maybe you came in like 4 to 7 or something like that.
Yeah.
You see, Vita?
Yes, hold on.
Hello.
These type of headphones.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Hi.
Yes.
Okay, good. I got my Lisa Frank headphones. Yeah.
Oh, cute.
I love it.
They worked in, so thank you.
So
sorry.
Introduction once again. This is Vita. And Vita, no, this is Maggie.
Hello.
And
hi, Maggie. Thanks for letting me hop in. Sorry.
No problem.
Oh, come on in. We're just kind of talking as we do, and yeah, we're on commercial break. We're doing the sponsorship.
Oh, okay.
We'll jump back in, and Maggie was just getting ready to explain. I'll kind of recap too, but she was just getting ready to explain and talk about her podcast.
Okay.
So I'll kind of.
It's very sexual, I hear.
Yes. So yeah. So I actually do it with my boyfriend who does live in Sacramento. Not my fiance because we're polyamorous. So we talk a lot about that on the podcast.
Wait. And I met him, right?
Oh yeah. So you probably have met Daria.
Yes.
Okay, so you do the show.
That's right.
You do the show with your boyfriend, but not with your husband.
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes. Well, we're not married yet, but yeah.
Fiance.
Okay. Oh, fiance. Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
So it is all coming back to me, yes, because we started talking, and I don't know how I was like, oh yeah, we are polyamorous too. And we're talking about the swinger scene in Sacramento. I totally remember now. I was so lit that day. That's not the reason why I was talking, but yeah, that was like October.
Yeah, that works.
So
yeah, he's super open about it.
Right.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
why not?
I mean, totally. We were so supposed to be working, and we weren't. And we were both working same time. I think it was like an hour across or lap over. And in that hour, we just hit it off. And I remember telling my husband, like, oh my God, I met it. Yeah, that's what, so awesome. Here we go. So,
yeah.
fantastic. So we'll go back on the after one. Yeah. Yeah, now definitely After Dark is definitely going to have to be an appearance. You guys will, yes. Yes. Because
that's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. We had a friend of ours who has a podcast, Akeem, he was on, his Raw and Uncut, and he just did an episode with Front Porch Swingers, and they're pretty big as far as in the podcast. They have a podcast. Yeah, you should check them out. They were really good, and they had a really good response. Like, he has mainly people of color, that are his listeners. And I was so worried about how they would respond. We were on the live, and we were like saying stuff, and he knows who we are, and then people that follow me on Twitter were like, oh, was this Menage? So we're not shy about it if it comes up, but I was just surprised by the interest and the lack of judgment that was actually given to them. And they did really, really good. Like, I was like, I'm gonna have to go visit Montana. Like, so
Big Sky Country.
yeah, it was. You should check them out. They did a really good job. But I love this. Look at this whole week. Look, the universe is putting together here. All this love.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's good.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and just do our roll. Like, we're coming back from our sponsorships. Thank you so much to Anchor FM and or .fm and to Monthly Club. Also to our newest sponsor, and this is one of our sponsors for After Dark as well, which is Love Sense. So, if you guys have any questions about that,
who is it?
Talk a little bit more about that. You guys will After Dark. Love Sense.
Oh, Love Sense.
Yeah.
I like that.
Do you know what that is?
It's Sense, SCENT.
SENSE.
No, I don't.
They are toys. Yeah, they're toys that you can use remotely.
I heard about those.
Nice.
I checked out some demos of those things. They were expensive.
Yeah, they're, most
let me not say expensive. Let me say they're investments. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you say expensive, it kind of implies like, oh, that's not really worth it, or you're being ridiculous. It's an investment, and so it's worth it. I'm sure.
You're gonna pay over $100 for something that is a little, We also have a sponsorship through a silicone doll company. So yeah, how about that? But yes. So this is why this is going to After Dark. It's all After Dark, guys. I don't know if any of our 53% that are in Lyon, France, if maybe they listen with. They shouldn't probably listen with some minors, but maybe they do. I don't know. You guys drink wine early. I don't know. But yes, so we're back from our break here, and as you guys can see, Vita has joined us. So technology started to decide to work with her, and we were just discussing how Maggie has technology, especially during the quarantine. Everybody's using everybody's using internet, so it is what it is. But join me as I sit in front of the Bay Bridge at sunset. And we'll get into what Maggie was talking about before you were able to join us, that she has been able to take her passion, the cannabis and sex and education. She's a sex educator as well. And she decided to put those together and create this podcast. So
that's great.
To jump into that and actually, she has a very, what I think is an awesome relationship and a great background. This is kind of how it started. So the floor is yours, Miss Maggie. Go ahead and share with us, what the other motivation was, and like I said, a little bit more about the podcast.
Yeah, so my boyfriend and I do it together, just so that we can kind of like, he doesn't always come on. He's my co-host because he is in Sacramento and I'm in Santa Rosa, so we can't always be in the same room. And when I have a guest on, sometimes I like to do just one-on-one, just so it's like a little more personal, because I ask a lot of personal questions. But I really want to do it to just kind of like highlight how everybody has a different sexuality and everyone's learned about sex in different ways and everyone's received different messages, but we all kind of have like the same kind of insecurities, the same hangups, and everyone's different. But, in the end, we all have something that turns us on. And I'm really curious about what that is for people. And I just kind of like to dig deep in that way.
Yeah, no, look, we had a conversation the other day. We had a conversation the other day, and I mean, it just suddenly turned, and I was like, wait, how did we get there?
Yeah, so you're talking about Giselle?
Yes.
You're talking about my birthday now? Oh,
yeah.
So, my birthday episode, Maggie, the birthday episode turned into, we filmed from like 9:30 to about 3:30 in the morning with some breaks.
But it became like a full sexual confessional or something. It was.
Whoa. I'll have to listen.
Yeah. Just as a teaser.
It was, the second, the other After Dark episode, stuff's going to be just honest. There's a place for it.
Right.
Podcasting is an awesome platform for it because your audience comes to you. So you don't have to worry about offending anybody. If you're listening and you're offended, you're going to keep that to yourself more than likely, because you're really offended because it's really touching onto something that you're not ready to deal with or be honest with. So have you found that it's therapeutic for you in any way, Maggie? I know that, and this is just me speaking, I know that my sexuality now is definitely rooted in an experience that happened to me when I was a teenager, where I was, there was sexual assault that occurred, and I know that my sexuality now and me being comfortable and me having the mindset that I do, it is rooted in that, and the reason why is because there has to be some healing that came from that to make sure that I knew that didn't define me as a person, which now allows me to be who I am and why I live. So that's kind of, other than I think just my natural interest. I can remember before then just being really, really curious. But would you say that that's something that the podcast does for you? Is it therapeutic in any way? Does it help your relationship, your triad? Tell me a little bit about that.
It has definitely been very therapeutic for like Daria is my boyfriend. We're definitely a lot closer, and there's a lot I've discovered about him because of it. And it also, there's like some books that I've read for it. I'm sorry, my cat is she's just like running around. So like there's certain books that I've bought and read for the podcast, and like that's definitely reading a self-help book for something, you're gonna end up self-helping accidentally. So like there's a lot that I've discovered, and all good stuff though. Like, and I've always been very self-inquisitive. Like I was a psych major, so like naturally you kind of just therapize yourself.
Aw. She's cute.
So yeah, I have a lot of sexual trauma that I've unpacked and come to terms with the fact that it like I've learned that you can't change what turns you on, so you might as well embrace it, and don't let it control you, you know, like do what makes you happy. And as long as things are consensual, you know, you can kind of resolve those issues.
True. A safe place, a safe space, you know, for people to talk about their self-discovery.
Yeah, and that's what I think kink is for a lot of people. Like it's a safe space to explore these things that, you know, satisfy your core desires, you know.
Yep. I mean, look.
And it's funny that you mentioned that. No, it's funny that you mentioned that. And Vita, you said that you've already seen it. So this will kind of lead me into what a topic that I did want to talk about. Maggie, have you seen the documentary Tickle? Tickle.
No.
Crazy.
Oh. So, okay, it introduces a much broader conversation about kink and fetish.
Yeah.
This is very borderline. So it's on Hulu. If you have Hulu, please watch it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes, I don't want to ruin it, but we'll have to talk about it. Like you have to watch it, and then we'll have to like come back together, and talk about it again. But let's just say competitive endurance tickling is the basis for where it starts off. Yeah. So
wow.
I'll say this: if you've seen the Tiger King, have you seen Tiger King yet?
We tried watching the first episode, but my fiance works for the zoo, and so he was like getting really upset, so we just turned it off, you know.
Okay. Gotcha.
I 1000% understand that.
Well, you guys should be able to. You should be able to handle the tickled then. Tickled's a little different.
So I was gonna say if you hadn't seen Tiger King, then you thought that was a shit show. That's two places you didn't realize the point. So tickled is like tops that. Like no animals involved. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good.
Your fiance, he can watch that. But tell him I definitely understand. He would hate Carol Baskin just like everybody else in the world hates that woman. If you guys got that. It is wow. Yeah. So I'm curious.
I don't hate Carol Baskin. I think I don't hate Carol Baskin. I think they're all nuts. Like the Tiger King included, everybody he messes with, like the whole shit show. I can't stand any of it. It's just insane to me. Like, why would you do that?
She killed her husband and fed him to the tiger.
That's what I've heard.
Fed her husband to the tiger.
Yeah, but then he went online pretending to shoot her and talking all crazy like that.
She was holier than thou. She had like human like slavery going on basically. Like she was not doing anything better. She was doing the same exact thing.
I mean, look,
right. She definitely was.
Hey, I do like the one dude with hella wives. If he would just get rid of his tigers.
I mean, I had it on lock.
Shining a bad light on polyamory.
Yeah. But you know what? He denies it. That's what so he can't even. That's what makes me mad. As I was watching an interview with him, and he completely denies it. Like
this starts to admit it towards the end. Like there's certain parts where he's like, "Yeah, well, we're all dated before, and we just still all live together." But then he won't say that they're all his girlfriends. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, he's not claiming them.
The reason why is because he gets them at 17, 18, 19. Like,
yeah, never mind. I don't like him either. Yeah, I forgot about that. I was like, he seemed the least offensive, but now that you recap it, I'm like, yeah, him too.
Paying for them to get boob jobs and shit and weighing them and yeah.
But see, just like the tickling thing, it talks about power and what power does to people. You know what I mean? And then it just bleeds over into whatever they're doing, you know? So.
Yes. Yeah. There's actually like a funny joke in the animal zookeeper world that the people who work with big cats are like usually like really power hungry. But
a very advantageous position.
Yes, that's a secret from a zookeeper.
Okay, makes sense to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say if Peter doesn't mind asking or answering the question, what without focusing too much, but what animals does he primarily work with? Is it all animals or is it
primates?
So he loves birds. So he works with like vultures, like hornbills, all the flamingos, all the ducks, any bird. Yeah.
Birds. Okay, I bird watch in my backyard. I have a woodpecker who comes by. It's the best thing ever. And he beats on this old wooden post that's no longer in use. And I just watch him with my binoculars. So yeah, birds are cool. Bird watching.
Yeah, he loves birds.
I don't think I've ever seen a woodpecker.
No, it looks just like Woody Woodpecker. Swear to God, it's got red top on its head. And there's squirrels running around the backyard. It's like Chip and Dale, Woody Woodpecker. I've got the whole cartoon world in the animal kingdom in my backyard. It's great.
Got a Disney show. I
know. Like I wake up in the morning and float out in my gown and be like, hello, all of you pretty little creatures. They come to me.
You just hit a high note, a high soprano note, and just and they fly in.
Right. Then I hear someone go, "Shut up!"
Berries and nuts and
early.
That's fun.
No, but they did tear it. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, Maggie. So this is how our podcast goes. I know you said you probably listened to an episode or two, but this is it.
Go
crazy.
Yeah. Let me ask you about your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you have any questions for us?
Yeah, like so it sounds so does it act, I haven't listened, I'm sorry, but I will.
No, it's fine.
Does it act like as almost like a confessional too, or do you do people share with you, or do you just do kind of most of the projecting?
Yeah, we end up revealing a lot about ourselves, and I'm pretty open, so we talk a lot about I talk a lot about myself. And the people who come on, I try to get them to reveal things, I ask them, questions that they're hopefully comfortable with. But yeah, like the last episode I recorded, it was like super awkward and tension filled. And, like that's what I love about it is like sometimes it brings that out about people.
Okay.
But it was also kind of weird because like quarantine and like we were like had to stay like away, and it was like very like it was just like a weird situation.
That's a whole new vibe.
Yeah.
Quarantine. Look, I'm gonna need you to keep your quarantine distance now.
Yes.
So where do you find your guests?
So I haven't had a lot of guests on. Like I've had my mom on, I've had my stepdad on, and they're obviously very interesting guests. And I'll my mom's great. She grows weed and she supports me no matter what.
Hey.
Right. So
I think that's really cool. I think that when you told her, just to touch upon that, kind of piggyback on it,
mm-hmm.
when you first introduced your lifestyles, or how was that conversation? Did you know when you were in school in Davis, or was it something you discovered after?
So I guess like when my fiance and I started like really being polyamorous, like I was honest with her, and I told her what was going on, and she was super accepting, and she actually was kind of like, I have done stuff like that in the past, and it could potentially be like a family thing. And then one day my aunt actually texted me and she said, "Oh, I saw you on Reddit." And I was like, "Oh gosh, what Reddit?" And she was like, "Reddit polyamory." And I was like, "Well, why were you on Reddit polyamory?"
I just read them all.
So my aunt actually turned out to be polyamorous as well, and I hope nobody that knows her heard that, but it should be fine.
You didn't say her name.
Well, they don't know.
I didn't say her name. No one knows who my aunt is.
That's really cool. That's really cool that,
right?
well, one, that your mom was on Reddit. Like, I don't even know if my mom knows what Reddit is, and let's keep it that way. But that's really cool that you were able to be that, be so honest and be open, and that she wasn't judgmental.
Not everyone in my family knows.
Well, as far as if my parents asked, I wouldn't lie.
Deny, right?
I'm hella grown. We did have a girlfriend long term. That's not a situation anymore. But our plans were to live together and we exchanged vows and did everything. But if the situation would have, holidays or whatnot, and she came around or we brought her around, like, it would just be what it is. I think the issue for my family, or for my mother, and then for the hubby's mother, would be the religious aspect of it. That's what their, opposition. If you had somebody that came to you for advice with that same situation, how would you approach that? What would your advice to them be?
Yeah, religion definitely puts a lot of shame on, like, I feel like it would be related back to like promiscuity or something, like, oh, something about you is so promiscuous, you have to have this other partner around or something like that. Like, there's always a lot of right, there's always like a lot of and my stepdad, when I interviewed him on my podcast, he's super religious still, and he grew up Catholic, and so he we talked about it, and we talked about how he had a lot of prejudice against gay people when he was growing up, because that's something that his religion taught him was wrong. And he he definitely shared with me, like, his feelings towards gay people is not completely it's not what he wants it to be, because he just can't get past that childhood and like the teachings and all that stuff. And so I told him, I was like, everybody in my relationship knows what they're in for, and the only thing that everybody gets out of it is more love,
right?
And I was like, how can there be anything wrong with love? And that's how I explained it.
And people feeling good and not hurting anyone. It makes no sense.
Yeah. And it's kind of like people will throw questions at you, and you just have to be ready to answer them. Like, if you want to tell them, like, and that's the thing, it's like, I always say, like, if somebody is going to have like a negative impact on your life, let their reality be what their reality is. You don't have to share your reality with them.
Right.
If your partners love you, they'll understand.
Yeah.
And I think it's, people make it so much about the physical aspect, sex, and of course that is so much of a plus. It's fantastic. Once again, why not one more? If two was good, then one more can't be horrible. So it's even better. We'd rather have 2 bowls of ice cream for free. I don't know.
I was saying, it's also about asking the people who are asking you questions like, oh, do you do this? What's it like when you do that? They should be asking themselves more integral questions like, so why do I believe what I believe? Why did I attach myself so much to the agreement of believing that gay people are bad because of my Christian upbringing? Why did I choose to accept my Christian upbringing so deeply in my mind? You know what I mean? Like, question your own mind and why it's working the way that it is, instead of asking the other person why they do what they do and trying to understand them. Get to know yourself and why you made those agreements, you know, with the mitote,
right.
essentially, you know, because you're continuing to agree.
That, you know, I definitely say that when you go to college, I know this is for me personally, and I know for, you know, for the hubby as well, because we discussed this. Going to college and then having a different education, not saying better or more, I'm saying a different education, allows you to start thinking differently, and then it allows you to start asking questions that normally you wouldn't have asked because you were told not to. So I know for myself, that's where my ideas started to develop. You know, I think that's where a lot of people's ideas start to develop in college. I think, like, if you take anybody that grew up in any type of household that, you know, you had any type of religion or any type of structure, once you went to college and came back, you didn't want to fall into that same thing that you were doing for 18 years. You know what I'm saying? Because for whatever reason, you have so many different experiences. You meet different people. I mean, we always look back and go, we go back for a picnic day, and we're like, holy shit, we knew a lot of people. Because we see so many people, and we'll be like, we used to kick it with them, and they'll be like, yeah, you don't remember we blazed up in the parking lot this, and we're like, sure. Yeah, I mean, like, we have a great memory. God damn, there are so many people.
Hell no, I don't remember it.
So awesome people, you know? And it's so funny. The one thing that we do take away from it is we definitely met the different type of, like, weed dealers. Because you would go and, like, we had this one dude that we would buy from, this guy that was in my class, Brian, total, like, white boy, like, total, right? We'd go to his house. He'd have 7 different weeds out. He wanted us to know about every single one, the strain, where it was grown, outdoor, indoor.
A real salesman.
Test each one. We'd be over there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, getting blazed, and then we'd leave with like, and then we'd leave and be like, man, we didn't even need to buy that, you know, 8, because he just pretty much smoked us out. And then
nah, we good, never mind.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We need to buy anyway. Like, it's not that cheaper. It's cool. No, like, completely. And then we go and we buy from maybe our agent hookup. Way different. What you want, when you want, how much you want it, know what you want, don't you? Don't tell you nothing about it. It's that whole like, this is type shit.
Right. You
like,
get what you get.
It keeps you waiting all day. Yeah. So that's one thing that we do remember. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Meet me at the gas station, all paranoid and shit like that.
Hey,
like,
though, listen.
Drive around 3 times. Oh, and the guy that worked at the gas station. Yes. Oh.
My.
You know, I remember. We had the people that worked at the gas station, and they had some killed. That was my second time doing a gravity bong hit was at their house, and I was so lit. Oh my God. We lived 2 doors down, and I couldn't walk. I could not walk those 2 doors down. We was at their house for at least 4 hours. My
absolute most interesting dealer was like a friend's dad, and he would go in the back and get it, but he would keep you waiting in the hallway with like pictures of his preacher father. And it's like the preacher family was like, he just felt so judged.
Look at that shit.
Like, now you ain't supposed to be, you know you ain't supposed to be selling weed. You know you shaming granddaddy. You know he doesn't approve as he sits there, you know, judging me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh. He wasn't going to hate on his own pocket, but he was just going to put you in a hallway where you could have pictures judging you. So then maybe. That's like,
and I always wanted to ask him, like, would your preacher father agree with this transaction? You know, but I never wanted to be disrespectful, so I just let it ride, you know. But I thought it.
He may have had glaucoma cataracts, maybe.
He may have been a preacher who blazed. You never know. Shoot.
Hey, kind of the best ones. I mean, you know, I will say that I've been able to get my grandmother, you know, I've told you this story before, I've been able to get my grandmother my grandfather passed away, and my grandfather was a bishop, owned his own church, you know, very high, in the East Bay, actually, Pittsburgh. So that's where all my family is.
Nice.
You know, my grandmother being first lady of the church, you know, being from Jackson, Mississippi, very religious her whole life. You know, it was always dope. It was always the dope. And I was able to convince her, like, you need to stop using those 30 daily medications that you're on, 30 daily, which means you're taking 210 pills a week, if not more, when you feel like you're in pain, and start using this. You know, now my grandma thinks she's a pro. She has like a vape pen. You know, she, you know, gets tinctures. So I have to watch her though, because she orders shit off Amazon, and I'm like, Grandma, that is probably not full spectrum. Like, you can't just order anything, you know. So
right.
I'm trying to really find I'm trying to find a good delivery service there in the Bay that would be able to, you know, curate the right.
Can she get the monthly box?
You know, I think that they do have some delivery there. But the thing is she has THC. So she doesn't have, her CBD products are mainly THC, but it'll have a little bit like a 4-to-1 ratio. Yeah. So a slight amount of THC.
So she's only slightly THC. Okay.
I always need to make sure it's not like edibles. And my grandma, because my grandma, like, she's a little lady, but she can eat. So I can see her
eat hella and get messed up.
Yeah. So, back to you have you had your mother and your stepfather as guests, and then do you just kind of how do you choose your topics? I know one of the episodes that I did want to talk about is where you, I don't know if it was a freestyle or you wrote it. At the beginning of an episode, you rapped. Remember that?
So that's my new intro song. So actually,
that's good.
Thank you. So Daria actually raps. So he used to rap like when he was like 21 or something, and he has some songs on SoundCloud. So I was like, I'll write it if you will rap it for me, and he was like, okay. So that's what happened. I've written a rap about the vulva before, so I love writing like rhymes and shit, but I like don't sound good rapping, so I kind of just like leave it to the other people, but I'll write it.
Okay.
Yes, I love that.
That's
about the vulva, that is like.
And work on your Chanel West Coast.
It's important.
I know. I was gonna say, you should drop some bars, drop some fire bars. There's probably some people out there, women and men, that need to know a little bit about vulva.
Oh, I don't know.
I'm the Majora.
You can find it on YouTube if you want to really see it, because I put it on YouTube. I think my YouTube channel, so I used to have a YouTube channel, which is kind of like where my sex education, like passion kind of started. I would like sit in front of the camera and do a YouTube live video where I would just like talk about a sexual informational topic and just like dive really deep. And there's actually like 30 videos on there. And, you know, I don't take them down, but I don't make any more. Maybe I should. They were kind of fun, but it was just like a lot of work because I was trying to get everything as factual and as non-judgmental as possible. So it was like I put a lot of work into it and then editing it and everything. And I was like so busy, and I still am really busy. So it does seem like a daunting task, but maybe one a month would not be bad.
That'd be good. Well, we want to look it up. So what is it? What's your,
yeah, bust out.
God. Okay. So my YouTube channel was Positive Pussy.
Love it.
And that's it.
Love it.
Okay,
so
you can
we have
be
an episode once a month, and it's Pussy Power.
Right.
Oh.
So she's positive pussy. I'm cosmic pussy. You're power pussy. It's like Pussy Spice.
The Pussy Puff Girls.
Right.
I love that. Hey, hashtag that, trademark it right now. I absolutely love that. That's dope. That is awesome. Yeah, so the hubby has to have your channel up now.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, yeah, let's see that.
You had a collar on?
Oh, so that was my kitten play video. Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
That's funny. I have a collar as well. Oh, we're definitely gonna have to do an After Dark episode because I almost grabbed it. Grabbed it. This isn't the episode for that. So yes,
oh, so let me show you the vulva is the wrap.
Okay. Where? Let's see.
Video 27.
Right there. Let me show you the vulva. Go back.
Yeah, that one.
Right there.
Oh, God.
Is this the wrap? This is the wrap, right?
It's been so long since I've watched this.
What's the wrap? Wait, I can't hear.
Oh, God.
Hey. I love it.
It keeps going.
I love it. That's great.
Hey.
Oh,
wow.
Goodness. Oh, it's so long, you guys.
Okay, you want us to cut it?
So much.
Oh, it's almost 8 minutes.
Well, so after the wrap, I go into an informational, like,
Okay.
kind of like talk about
I like it
it.
too. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm with it.
Love that. So, look, the hubby is loving it. We were watching that later.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it later too.
So much joy out of that. That is awesome.
And you know, a lot of people need to be taught.
That's yes, most definitely.
Yes.
I think
So
it's really cool, and I'm telling you right now, I would be. So our son is in 6th grade. He had health education or sex education in 5th grade. That boy got in the car that day, and he knew every term. He was telling me, Mom, you know, you have this and this and that, and you know, they did the diagrams and everything. And my 11-year-old legit is like a 42-year-old in muscles. Like he's an old man. But he, you could tell that he was curious, you know, about what they were saying. And he's like, Mom, I just wanted you to know, I don't think I've had a wet dream. And I was like, oh, okay. And this is like within the first 3 minutes that I picked him up from school that day. And I was like, really? I was like, you know what that is? He's like, yes. It's when he goes, and I'm pretty sure I haven't had one yet. I was like, okay, well, when you do, you don't have to share, but if you want to, I'm here to listen. I have all boys. So, yeah, so it's
that's hilarious.
especially because we raised them to be very honest and we're very outspoken as well. And so some of the stuff that they say, I'm just like, oh, that's so honest. Okay. So, but never want to shame them, you know,
Right.
definitely not. I grew up in Elk Grove. I don't know if you're familiar with that part of Sacramento, but, you know, it was, when I moved there, very, you know, Mormon-filled town. And those people were doing the most in the freakiest and just completely lying by that, you know, purity ring they were wearing. But I also saw the people that were so sheltered that as soon as they got any inkling of freedom, they went buck wild, you know. I myself had my first little piece and maybe a little excited, but I see the benefit, or the benefit of being more honest than being more sheltering, especially today, when they can hop on YouTube, and we found out like 2 weeks ago, doesn't take a lot to find porn on YouTube.
No.
Which I couldn't believe. I really thought YouTube was on top of that shit. They're on top of, demonetizing people's videos, but they're not on top of the freaking porn that I found when I put in like 3 words, and all of a sudden there was porn. So that's fucking crazy. But yeah, I love that. I wouldn't be upset if that was something that they showed in a sex ed class for like 7th graders, 8th graders, shit, even 9th graders. I just think probably at 9th grade, they'll probably like laugh too much and probably not actually get, the gist of it. And then we walk around doing this, probably. I can see a bunch of freshman boys.
Yes. And that's kind of like one of the things, like laughter helps you learn. So. Yeah. That totally reminds me of the episode of Seinfeld when he couldn't remember the girl's name, but he knew that it rhymed with a female body part, but he couldn't remember. Yeah, and at the end he goes, "Oh, Olva." That was probably
that's hilarious.
Seinfeld, and probably the only episode other than No Soup would actually know. But yeah.
Right. That's great.
Really
I love that.
I think that it would go great with your podcast and your brand if you did, a video, that maybe if you even started a Patreon, and that would be some of the bonus, footage, or some ways that you would get subscribers is by giving your information, answering questions, maybe you get, I know my goal is I want to get an adult actor or actress on. I would love to.
Oh, nice.
I mean, the one that I want to get on, I don't think I'll be able to, but I'm going to manifest it. Hoping, but maybe you'd be able to get people on from the community. I would love to come on and talk about polyamorous life, or let me ask, have you ever attended a munch?
So
What's that?
So I guess like my understanding of a munch is kind of like kinky people. There's like a meetup kind of for the kink community. And we've never been to a munch, but we are part of this polyamorous group in Oakland called Organ House, and it's kind of like, well, they host orgies, and they haven't hosted one obviously in a couple months because of everything going on.
Yeah.
But before they would host monthly events, and
they could host a digital one.
They actually are talking about that, and I'm not really a voyeur, but I'm definitely an exhibitionist, so I might log on just to like hang out for a minute and watch some stuff go down.
I mean, it's been a while. Like, definitely, I do miss that aspect of parties and get-togethers. Yeah, just like not having the choice to be able to, to meet up or to go out. But yeah, that's basically what a munch is. It'll be held in like a coffee shop or like a restaurant.
Oh, okay. So just like a hangout.
A night of, like there'll be some education. There'll be like maybe speakers, especially because there'll be people that are coming. Then there'll be an opportunity for you to speak with someone. All the ones that we've normally been to, somebody usually has like a book or like a product that they're, talking about, or maybe they're going to be hosting another, like a weekend away or whatever. So they give you the opportunity to speak with that person in more detail. And then you have some time to kind of network and go around and meet people. I know for us, we always kind of stood out because the people that would attend the ones locally here, they're very granola, like they would stay, like they would go to the Whole Earth Festival.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we, we get dressed up. We just don't look that mold. Or there would be people that were very wise, we'll say. Age is just so very wise.
Hey, when I was a kid, I'm on a lag from my internet, so sorry. When I was a kid, I never told you, growing up, so you mentioned the Bay Area, right? And this, what did you say that they meet up and they throw orgies? They haven't done it lately. Mm-hmm. So when I was a kid in Oakland, before I moved to Hawaii, I lived by Lake Merritt. And I don't want to say too much because there is always the After Dark episode. So, we got to not give it all away. But just kind of on the sake of conversation. So there was a purple house across the street. And these are mansions, what we consider like our downtown houses. When you have a whole one to yourself, it essentially really is a mansion. And they would have Rolls Royces pull up, ladies, fancy gowns, dudes in top hats, coattails, monocles, the whole nine, like putting on a show. And
that sounds like
but what they were was a high-end sex club. And so my mom would always be like, don't you go in that purple house. You don't go in there. And it's like, well, nothing's going on. There's kids who live there because these people who run this and are part of this lifestyle, they have children. Their children are my friends. Yeah. So if there's no events going on, like, why can't I go visit my friends? Now, there was rules about just being up in each other's house, period. You know what I mean? Like, you could go in and out, but you couldn't hang out in anybody's house. No one hung out in yours. If you had to go in, get a toy, something like that. And they had like secret passageways in the walls, like Webster, where you pull the clock back and there's crawl space, so you come up in the middle of the floor in a hatch. And one time, me and my friend went to get her Easter basket, and it was like, we came up in the floor, it was like, oh shit. I was like, oh no, what are we interrupting? We gotta get out of here, and she's just, she's like, shh, let me grab this, I'm here now, and I'm like, oh shit. Right. I'm thinking you about to get us in trouble. And her mom's like, get out of here, get out of here. You're being real, something to that effect. And I was like, see, that's why my mama said, don't be up there. You know what I mean? I was like, man, I'm going to get my ass beat, coming up here for this Easter basket, you doing all this. And I kind of got mad at her a little bit because I was like, well, that was kind of disrespectful to your mom, don't you think? Don't tell me that, like, that's okay. And she was like, yeah, I was kind of out of line, But it was crazy. And you know what, though? They provided, on a good note, they gave the whole community, they provided fresh fruit and organic produce and health foods to the whole entire street neighborhood, because that was just, they had it like that. They was mobbing like that.
Yeah, they like,
what do you say?
Like sharing and giving.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why they share.
So I never had judgment. I always felt like they wasn't hurting nobody. Nobody seemed hurt,
It's really not. So,
right.
Yeah. So Maggie, have you found that doing the podcast is like I said, it's fulfilling what you feel is your passion and your purpose. Do you feel at the end of every episode, I know for myself, at the end of every episode, I feel like, okay, that's going to give somebody some joy. Or, if it is a really full education episode, we're going to have a CBD expert coming on in a couple of weeks. That's going to be a straight full education type episode, depending on what the vibe is. But I feel like at the end of every one, I've accomplished, something. I've created some content that I'm proud of. You're doing something by having the conversation about cannabis and sex, where you are definitely, feeling a need for a conversation that needs to be had. So do you feel at the end of every episode that you've done that part? Do you feel that being so honest and being transparent yourself, like overall, you're really helping, others out there, and that kind of keeps you going? Talk a little bit about how that.
Definitely. Like oh yes, bless you. Sorry. I truly have like, yeah, at the end of every episode, like I feel like I always want to do more, you know, and that's kind of like why I keep doing it. And I've had people reach out and be like, you know, I've had conversations with my partner because I listened to this episode and something like that, or I'm thinking about opening up my relationship and I need advice on this. And, you know, like I'm really open about how my polyamory works. And there's so much that people do have a lot of questions, and there's always questions. And I just feel like having the conversation it just like helps people see a different side. And every time people listen to it that I know, they always are like, you know, talking openly about sex is useful, no matter, you know, like, of course, in a not judgmental way is the most useful. And that's kind of like what I try to do. So yeah, like, and, you know, for me personally, like, it started off as a passion project, but in the end, like people reaching out and telling me that it's helping them in these ways, or it's making them think about things in different ways, like that's what has been the best thing to get out of it. And not really what I was intending either. Like, you know, of course I want to open people's minds, and I also love podcasts. So I just felt like, you know, why not have something fun to do? And I've enjoyed it so far. And I'm just barely starting. I started out in August, and, you know, I only have like 20 some episodes, but I try to produce as many as I can. And sometimes it's not every week, but, you know, I want to have guests on. And if, you know, y'all want to come on, like, if anyone wants to come on, let me know. Cause I love just shining a light on different sexualities.
Yeah. I've been accused.
That's, you know, part of being a podcaster.
I've been accused of being boring recently, so. Probably don't want me on your podcast.
Hey. No, I mean, I just love it. I would love for you to come on and us to like kind of dive deeper into, you know, your relationship and, you know, your mind as well, but just dive deep a little more into the polyamory side. I know I always get questions because we traditionally, I know in any triad that we'll be in, it will include a female. So I would love to find out about, because I don't think we've ever met anybody that if they have been in a triad, it hasn't been with two males and a female.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. We've only seen it on like Polyamorous and Dating, the Showtime show, which actually got us into looking into, you know, that lifestyle. It's a documentary. It's probably about 5 years old, longer than that, because we've been in it since 7. So opened our eyes to it. Educated us a little bit more. So that was 7-8 years ago, but it's still on. If anybody has Showtime, and you have a Showtime membership for like the Showtime Go or whatever the streaming version is, it's on there.
Yeah, I haven't. What's it called?
Full series. It's Polyamorous and Dating.
Okay, and Dating. So looking.
So, yeah.
Oh, I think I've watched that show on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you probably find it on there. Yeah, so there was one where the woman, she had control. Like, she wanted several, and she had several guys to kind of meet different needs. But she was in a real, like, relationship. I don't even think they were married, but, like, her foundation relationship, he wasn't that excited because he wasn't having as much luck with his end and having, you know, females.
Oh, okay.
Common problem.
But then his included a male and a female, and then she wasn't that comfortable with him having a full outside relationship with the male. She wanted him to be involved with her and one of her male lovers. So that one was, you had to definitely pay attention, and that one was interesting.
See, all this approved polyamory is no good for love and hip hop, because then if everybody just says, okay, you're dating her and me too, then there's what they're gonna fight about it, pull each other's hair out.
Yeah.
Mona Scott could never come up with a polyamorous and dating hip hop version. It would not work. I mean, I'm very surprised to see that there was one show, TLC, and it was called Real Life Sister Wives or something. And there was a Black couple on there, and we were shocked. And they were younger in Atlanta, and we were shocked because when you're in it and you're out and about, especially when you're in your throuple, you notice other things. So the one time we were in Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and it was right before she went away. So it was like March. It was March time of the year around my birthday. Actually, we were there for my birthday, and we saw like 3 throuples that weekend, and they were younger, but it was a black man and 2 Caucasian women. Well, when we went to dinner, but then on the beach that day, and they had kids. And they both had young babies, so it was like they both had kids at the same time, so they both had babies. And I was like, "Oof, that's a lot right there." And then they had like a 3-year-old. So we saw like 3 that weekend. Then we saw 2 throuples at dinner that night, and they were around the same age. But it was the same kind of setup. It was a male and 2 females. So that's our only experience other than going to a munch. And at munches, you really don't see them too much. It's like people are looking for others. But that's been our experience as far as like seeing them out and about and whatnot. And Maggie, Maggie's younger. Maggie, I was pointing out to her earlier, she's only 2 years older than Jalen. So I love that. Yeah, she's a little younger. When I was like, I'm only slightly. I'm just a little bit older.
I've got some young Insta friends who just came out as a throuple. Like they've been together and had a baby, and then they recently made an announcement that they have a 3rd organic. They're all African American. They're all Black, and they're very organic and artistic. That's awesome. Yeah, and so that, like, and it was kind of cool watching them, like say their little thing, and they're not like making a big to do about it. I guess they were just sharing with us, who like they have everything else. I like their honesty. They're cute together too.
I think it's also like that. I mean, I did stumble upon a dom and a dominatrix, or she's a dominatrix, he's a dom, separately, but then together she's a sub. Jasmine and King War or something like that. They followed me on Instagram, and through them I found a Black throuple that are very open about it. So once you follow somebody on Instagram, it gives you suggestions. So once I followed them, I was like, whoa, like it gave me 10 or 15 more groups that were people of color or just like younger millennials, kind of groups, and it's more widespread than what I thought. I know that we have good friends that lived here that moved to Texas, and they're like, it is like that's what Black people do in Texas. And I was like, what? And I would love for it to be much more mainstream and open.
Well, listen, if there's any like rich power couples.
Yeah. No, that's kind of what they're doing in Texas. Yeah, like everybody's well-to-do. Yeah, that's what they're saying. So, but Maggie, like, what about in your age group or in your circle? Is in that group that you kind of belong to, is everybody your age? Or they're your same ethnicity? Kind of what is your experience?
Yeah, so we realize it is predominantly like white people, and even though it's the Bay Area, and like it's probably more diverse than somewhere more central or not in the Bay Area, but it's definitely like mostly white people. And I gotta I noticed that in the sex industry, like at least in like that realm of like learning about like all the sex education and stuff. And I mean, there is a lot of religion in the Black community as far as I know, and so I can see how that could play a large part of that. And also I realize I have a privilege to be able to be myself, and like not everyone has that privilege, and it's kind of like if you're stuck somewhere like you can't be yourself, like don't put yourself in danger.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure, definitely, because unfortunately there are parts of this country, even let's just say parts of this state, because based on your religion or based on
this world, parts of this world, you know?
Yeah, the falsehoods that your community or your society are putting on you, you know, you don't live your truth. And that's unfortunate because that's when I think relationships crumble, when marriages have an issue, when cheating comes into play, when, you know, other adversities or things like when people maybe start to look at harming people or children become involved, or, you know what I'm saying, like other, you know, marginalized groups like that, where the other issues become, and that's because people can't live their truth. Now, keep in mind, when you watch Tickled, I'm talking about this guy or person. Remember that. No, I said that. But I do know that I feel that if someone like my parents, for example, my mom will want to watch this episode or listen to it, but I really feel that if they would have maybe considered having others and having alternate relationships or bringing somebody else in, they probably would still be together and they'd be going on their like 35th year of marriage, I believe. Shit, how old am I?
Not bad.
I think younger. Yeah, I know. No, but maybe almost 40 years. Yeah, maybe almost 40. But I know that it doesn't fix problems. So that's kind of what I wanted to get into with you, Maggie, is if you've ever talked about how your lifestyle, how it works for you, and in a way being able to give advice and letting people know it's not a band-aid to what's already broken, but it's definitely, it takes a lot of security and a lot of strength on, like say your fiance's part, because I'm assuming that, you know, your boyfriend came in after the fact, you know, so whether or not he was into it before, whether or not you introduced him, like it definitely takes a lot of strength from, you know, from somebody that is agreeing. So, you know, how, like, I guess my question would be, have you ever talked about that in an episode? And if so, kind of what was your advice, you know, what would your advice be if somebody called in and questioned, I had a question during that episode?
Yeah, like there's tons of episodes where we have like something going on in our real relationship and we're like talking about it. Like, you know, my fiance and I just recently had like an issue with jealousy, and it's just kind of like it comes up and we talk a lot about how, like, where jealousy comes from and kind of like how to deal with it. And you know, I'll reference books and I'll just like tell people if you know, they want more information, like there's a lot of information online and all this stuff, but I'll give like my personal experience with it and like what's going on with our actual moment. And like, you know, I can talk about like my personal insecurities, and I can ask Daria like right there and be like, you know, like, what are you insecure about? What have I done that made you insecure? And he can like, we can literally talk about it right there. So people get like that real example of like how, you know, we are literally talking about everything, you know, and it's a good example, I would think.
Yeah, no, I think it's an awesome example. And, you know, people can tell bullshit, you know, even if it's through a podcast and they're listening and they're so visual, people can tell bullshit to bullshit, you know, so if it's not coming across genuine, especially I think for, you know, for a man in this situation, you know, for you, it's your truth. You also have training because you have a psychology degree, you know, so you understand how to broach the subject or breach the subject where it's done in a positive way, where it's done with intent and it's not done with any, you know, underlying malice or trying to play tit for tat or anything. Whereas for him, he's not, I want to say trained, but educated in that way. His emotions are raw and real at that point. So I have to give it to you because I know I always say it to the hubby. I always gave it to him, like, ooh, dealing with two women, you know, because, you know, when we got into it like how women got into it, and he's right in the middle, you know, and of course I'm like, well, you're my husband, let's not forget, you know, but I had to remember that I had made a commitment, just as committed as he is to me being the first, he also had to, you know, play that role and be understanding for her. So I give it to you because doing that between two men. It's going to be hard for men and women, but I would just think that that's
Yeah. Well,
that's an experience.
I've actually, so Daniel, my fiance and I, Daniel, we actually started polyamory because we did bring a female into our like circle. Like he started dating her first, and then, her and I eventually became intimate. And so we were in a triad, and, like, that was the first thing that we did that was like truly polyamorous, and there was a lot to learn from that relationship. And we've since moved on. Daniel's had other partners, I've had other partners, he's currently seeing somebody. So we go in and out, but we're definitely like each other's primary. And that's kind of just like how we structured it, and it kind of works for us. But it's funny because they're kind of friends, they both play video games on like WoW, like live together, like, so they're like, it's sometimes dealing with like two best friends that I'm like annoyed with, but I love them,
Yeah, but that's cool if they can be cool, but I can imagine how many, if they team up, you'd be like, wait, that must be high-fiving in agreement. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, when they hang out,
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, we would do things like, let's say we're watching an adult film together, a porn together, or whatever. Well, we would completely do nothing but critique the girl's hair, her earrings, her shoes, her outfit, the camera shot. The guy needs to be shaved, and he's laying there like, can we not like enjoy this for what it's supposed to be? We're like, wait a minute, we'll get to it. Like, so I can imagine like those times how that was for him. Yeah, it's the good old days. We definitely miss it. So how is it for you guys though because I know it's kind of difficult for us right now to find somebody, but how is it with the way that you guys date and find people? It's a little bit different. I never, it's going to sound old, but I've never had to, well, okay, I won't say that. I've been with him for 19 years in June. We'll be married 15 years in September. So I haven't had the need to utilize swiping anything else. Like the most that I had was like Black Planet or the chat lines. Like that was the most as far as like technology or social, social meeting kind of thing. How is it for you all? Do you guys meet people at work? Do you guys meet people off of apps? Do you, use a website like SLS? How do you guys come to meeting friends?
Yeah, so I actually just downloaded this app and I'm making this face because I haven't had much success on it, but it's called #open, and it's supposed to be for, open relationships, but there's not a lot of people on it, so it kind of sucks. But Daniel uses Bumble and Tinder, and he just puts on there like, I'm polyamorous, and if you don't know what that means, ask me. Daria uses Tinder. He says the same thing. But before the quarantine and stuff, we did find partners at those orgies. There were people that were, mid-20s to their 30s. And there were some people older than that. And most people, like, we were kind of like some of the youngest people there. But, like, that was a good place for us to find people who were down with being in this situation. But, so we've gotten lucky so far.
It seems like, I've seen, your boyfriend. I've seen you, attractive. I'm sure your fiance is as well. So it wouldn't be too hard. I remember telling her, oh my God, he's a cutie pie when I met your boyfriend.
Yeah, he's adorable.
I actually told you to be I was like total cutie pie. I was like the kind of white boy I would have dated back in the day. Like I'm pretty sure I did say that. So yeah, but I would think that for finding people like in your age group, like let's say you guys wanted to stay, 28 and younger or whatever, I would think it would be pretty difficult because you may find some people that are just in it for the allure to be like, oh, I get to do this, that aren't really polyamorous or even developed that idea yet. So I would see that as being like a, something that would be difficult if you guys stayed within a certain age range. But then I would also see as you being younger and being around people that are maybe in their 30s to early 40s that are in committed relationships or that, are interested, how that would also be a bonus. Like I would think you guys would probably like sometimes probably just like really, really popular, we'll say, not just attacked, but very popular.
Yeah. I think finding a community. I cut you off. I do think finding a community like was super important for us, just because like, we had broken up, like our girlfriend left us and we were kind of like really sad and didn't have people to really help us out in that situation. And how do you move on? Like, who do you find? And we were in Sacramento, and there are people in Sacramento who are poly. There is a community out there, and we found that community through Organ House and through going to those events. And we were like, oh, you live in Sac, we live in Sac. So we were able to find people that way. And that's what I always recommend to people. I'm like, honestly, if you have like, being a part of that community is so useful, because I've dated people who weren't polyamorous before, and your heart gets broken. Like, it doesn't work out. Like, monogamous people are monogamous, like, and they're never going to be okay with it. So, yeah.
So let me ask you this then. Is the community different in the sense that there's people who just want to smash and it's all about just getting some, or having a relationship that involves multiple people? So is there a difference in this community?
I mean, there are people who obviously are just highly sexual and, just want our relationship anarchists and aren't looking for anything serious. But, there's married couples that go, and there's people that are just single that go, and they are looking to be a third or to be, it's all different kinds of people.
Okay,
and I think
so
it's such an extensive community that you will find somebody that you're looking for. And
so just like with anything else, you'll have to speak on what you're looking for, what your perspective is. You'll need to know, you'll need to come, or you can figure it out, I would imagine too. You know what I mean?
And I think the poly community is already so like used to talking about everything. It's kind of like, if we're honest about our feelings, and that's the thing. Like, even dating someone who's new to polyamory is hard, because I'm so vulnerable and honest about my feelings all the time. And sometimes people who are coming into it, they're not always quite there yet. They need more help. And it's like, do you want to be the one, like, to date, to be like, when someone comes out of the closet, even like, do you want to be the first one, their first gay relationship, to teach them how to be, like, all of that stuff? It's like, there's always that introduction person, and it's work. But if you care about the person, you'll do it.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, as a sex educator, is it part of your responsibility to understand the new, I don't want to use the wrong term, but for example, there are pansexuals now. There are, you know what I'm saying, like LGBTQ is not just LGBTQ anymore.
Right.
So are you responsible for knowing all the definitions or knowing the attributes that make up, a certain sexual orientation?
I'm definitely familiar with like the more common terms, but we're taught as sex educators that identity is a personal experience. So if I'm approaching somebody and I don't know how they identify, or I don't even want to make assumptions, honestly. So I'll always ask people, like, how do you identify? And people like that question because they get to talk about themselves, and that's how I take the approach. It's like, so how do you identify, like what, and then they could describe it however, and that kind of gives them the freedom to kind of control that, because it's a personal experience, and that's how we're taught to kind of approach it. And so, obviously the general terms, like, we're just kind of familiar with them and stuff like that, but you can't know everything. You can't know everybody's personal experience. So like, you might as well just let them talk about it.
I just feel like there's always a new definition. There's always a new term. When I first heard people say they're fluid, or the fluidity in their sexuality, that made me be like, okay, so it's not just somebody saying that they're bisexual anymore. It's not someone saying that they're quote, gay.
Right.
It's not that. It's much more. And I want to have that respect for people and understand. But my thing is, like I said, I'm always curious, and I look at everything from a psychological standpoint. I want to know why I do the things that I do. I'm always curious about why we do the things that we do. I'm telling you, my best grade at college was human sexuality. Best grade ever. I mean, ever. I had the professor tell me, you don't do something in sex. Like, she was in sex. I don't care what it is. It's sex. Are you making me an offer? Like, what was that? But yeah, so it's very, and I think what it does, sex is what makes everyone tick. Let's be honest.
No. Because I have friends who are representing for the asexuals, and they'll let you talk. They might not even want to engage in the conversation, just kind of like not of interest,
Mm-hmm.
So that's right. So it doesn't make them tick, but it is something that they have feelings about. So maybe it doesn't make them tick in a positive way, like it gets me going, but it is something that is an aspect of their lives. They're asexual. Mm-hmm. So it is something, you know what I'm saying? Like in that aspect, it is something that...
Well, they have to come to terms with the fact that they are very different than most people.
Mm-hmm.
That everyone else is involved in some way with some alphabet letter, and they are the first, which is without A's, representing for the A's.
Yeah.
Leave me alone with that. I'm not interested in your, so.
What makes someone, or Maggie, I'm interested, being that you did study psychology and you're an educator. What is, have you ever spoken with anybody, or did you ever study about what an attribute or what leads maybe to someone being asexual? Like, is it usually something traumatic? Is it self-esteem? Like, I'm curious, and I'm not making a joke about anything or anybody that is. I'm really, like I said, I like to know, like, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we forget that sometimes sexual gratification is kind of just like satisfying some like core desire we have inside of us. So like sexual gratification is just a way to go about satisfying our core desires, but you can satisfy your core desire by literally just cuddling with someone, or just like if you just need someone to care for you, it doesn't necessarily have to have like a sexual component to it. So in a way, it's kind of like it is a sexuality, and their sexuality is that it has little to do with actual sex and more to do with other intimacies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Without the physical action.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, a lot of asexual people will engage in intercourse because it pleases their partner. And, if an asexual person is with someone who's sexual, it can still work. And I've heard of that totally working because people are willing to do a lot of things for love.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I know this is, and once again, I'm not trying to make light or make a joke, but the best thing that I can think of, and an example is I just binge watched Big Bang Theory. Mm-hmm. And like, so I would say Sheldon was very asexual until he fell in love with, I call her Blossom still. I know that was her name on the show. But, until then, Amy Farrah Fowler. Such a good show. If nobody's watched it, please do. It's a fucking great show. But yeah, so just in putting it into relation to something or, tangible, it would be like that's how he was until he fell in love with her. Mm-hmm. And then, based on his desire, they had sex once a year on her birthday. And then once their relationship developed and they were married for some time, then they were having it, more. But so that's a very good way. See, you ask questions, you learn. That's awesome. So what do you hope to do, or let's say I had a magic wand, mm-hmm. and I said, I can go ahead and make anything happen for your podcast. What would that be? Like by the end of the year, I can just make anything happen. What would be your wish?
Oh, that's wild. Honestly, I mean, I would just love to have a lot more guests. That would be like kind of just because the more guests I have, the more different kinds of people I can highlight. And I like to have just like normal, regular people on just because that's kind of like who everybody is a normal, regular person. And so, that would be my, like I would monetize it maybe one day if I was like a sex coach, and like I had more time to actually put into it. But you know, at the moment, like I'm still saving up for the training, and I still have my full-time job, and I have a lot of other stuff, and I do most of it on my own. So I produce it because I love doing it, but I can't do it as much as I would like. So that's why maybe one day, like once I become that sex coach, like I can like really pour a lot more into it, and that would be nice.
Yeah, and you will. I don't know if I told you, but I'm a little psychic, so I'm gonna tell you now. It will definitely happen for you, and you can do all of those things. I like to say that this coronacation that we're all being, you know, put on together is a time. It's the message from the universe, and it's a wake up message from the universe saying, hey, this is the time for you to start taking those passion projects, or to take those interests and start making it your true passion and purpose. I think this is the universe way of reminding us that we are, you know, dispensable really quickly if the universe felt that we needed to be. And I think it's kind of a message saying, wake up. So let's start to take advantage of, you know, the many blessings that we have. And for podcasters like us, I really think it's an opportunity for us to have our voices heard, because there's so many people that are looking to do some shit, or, you know, like I said,
take control.
53% of our listenership, but 53% of our listenerships now is in France. We just had Dublin, Ireland add to the list. Like, so we're like that. These are people around the world that some way, somehow, and I appreciate it, love our message and love what we have to do. So you never know. You could have freaking Elon Musk stumble upon one of your podcasts and be like, hey, I like this chick. I learned a lot about the culture. Let me go ahead and throw her a show. You know, I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see you making it happen. I think you would have a great platform, especially because you are, I think, unique as far as what we know every day. But I think once you got yourself out there, we probably found out that there's like millions of others, you know, 24 to 34-year-olds that, you know, are going through the same life and want that acceptance and want to get their, you know, message out there, and we'll really click with you. So my magic wand says it'll happen. We're gonna manifest, speak some shit into existence.
Thank you.
We're gonna do.
Yeah, and I've been getting more guests on lately, which is really cool. So, and I've been loving it. So I love that. So I put it out
now
there.
is the time.
Yeah, I'll share I'm gonna share a service with you that I just that followed me on Twitter, and it's a service that helps you to get podcast guests. So these people sign up to be experts or to say this is their specified field, and you just go through, as podcasters, we're free. You go through, you send them information about your podcast, what you want them to talk about. The company sends it to them, and then you get an email within 24 hours saying that they accept or not.
That's pretty cool. I love that.
I think you would. Yeah. So I know I did see a few sex educators and sex experts and
I could be a little shitster and ask like a religious expert to come on and be like, tell me about what you think about sex.
Well, you know, what's funny is that we go to a resort. We started attending a resort last summer. That is a family clothing optional resort.
Right.
And we met a priest. Yeah, we met a priest there. And he's a practicing priest. Like, he was on his holiday. And every vacation he takes, like, he's been to hedonism. He told me about the city in France that, like, every summer it's like a full just, you walk around naked all day, every day. You go to the bank, you go to the grocery store, you have sex on the street. Like, he told me about all this stuff, and I was like, so I'm curious. Because I definitely, you know, I let him talk, and then I said, it was about an hour, and we were in the hot tub, you know, chilling. You know, we're naked. I'm naked with a priest in the hot tub. Hey, you know, what did you do this summer? Hung out naked with a priest. But yeah, so I said, you know, I come from a very religious background. How are you reconciling the two? And, you know, he says, it's my job not to be judgmental. And he says, one time, you know, I was in Jamaica. He said his travel agent sent him there, and he didn't know that it was like a hedonism. And I'm like, well, it says hedonism, nice and big on the outside of the hotel. I don't know how you didn't know, but okay, we'll let you go with that story. You're like, you're a priest, you deal with your God about that lie that you're telling, but okay. But he was like, so he's sitting next to a couple, and he could tell that they're boyfriend and girlfriend, like they said something, you know, to let him know if they weren't married. And the girl starts giving some great head. You know, what I assume is great head, because if you're doing it in public on the beach, it better be, or don't do it. But
you know what? You suck right now. Don't be doing that out in public. Just get out of here. What is that?
No one wants to see a bad blowjob.
Get that out of your mouth.
Right.
Let me show you how to do this. I'm going to show you just real quick. Just really quick. I'm going to show you.
Oh my God.
Watch. Take notes. Right? Learn this trick. Take it back to your hotel room. Come back later and let me know if you've learned anything.
I see someone needs some coaching.
I would totally do that too, especially if I was drinking. Actually, I probably could be sober as hell. I hate to see a bad blowjob. It is so offensive. Like, I get offended. Like, I'm not even the guy. We're watching a movie and I'm like, this is bullshit, babe. Do we have to watch this? Like, she's lazy. What's she doing? Tangent. There I go. But yeah, so he said, you know, she started getting to work and he was like, I felt uncomfortable. He's like, but then I was like, well, all they're doing is expressing their love. And I'm like, I'm thinking, and you sat there and you probably got off a little bit too. I mean, I can't help every story he told me. This is what I'm thinking in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. But he was a priest. So, you know, that was an experience. But I think that would be awesome for you to have somebody on and to really have them break down based on this Bible that was written after slavery. Based on that, how can they deny or, you know, defend or, you know, say that you're doing something wrong? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love that. And when you do that, please let me know. Like, you may need to go live. You may need to like bring up a YouTube channel again and go live so that I can ask some questions. That'd be awesome. But it looks like we may have lost Vita. Her phone may have died. Yep, her phone died. She just texted me, so she said it was a pleasure and thank you so much.
Thank you, Vita.
I knew that was gonna happen. She needs a charger or something. But I don't want to hold you. Like I said, I could talk forever. I think I've already had you like a good hour and a half. But I definitely want, you know, all of my followers, my listeners, I want you to go over and please subscribe, listen. Why don't you go ahead and give everybody your you know, social media, where you can be found, where your podcast is streamed on. I know we were sharing it earlier. We had it on our screen earlier too. So once we get this video out and to our, you know, YouTube channel and stuff, you guys will be able to actually see, you know, the IG and YouTube as well.
Watch that video.
Yeah, so everything's going to be on tomorrow. But yes, why don't you share with everybody so they can go on and follow you and subscribe and get their sexual, you know, education fulfillment every week.
Yes, so I am at Highly Sexual Podcast on Instagram, and if you type Highly Sexual Podcast into Apple Podcast or Spotify, that's where I am. So.
Okay, awesome. And of course, you guys, we will share, you know, links to her pages, to her podcast, and you know, you guys will definitely be seeing her again. I definitely want you.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad we met. Honestly.
Good. Yes, me too. And it's so crazy that, you know, that's the do-do-do. That is the moment, okay? That I did not remember exactly how we got connected. But yes, I met her cute boyfriend. Yes, I totally remember. Please tell him hello.
Okay.
And maybe when we can have you guys all on the After Dark, that'd be awesome. We can talk about it in, you know, detail. And maybe collab. We need to talk offline. You know, talk about me getting on your show or us doing some other things. I think your energy is awesome. I think, like I said, you are purpose, you know, and it's obvious that you're passionate. You are truly living in your purpose. Yeah, and being able to kind of smash the two together. You know, we didn't really talk too much about how we both utilize cannabis and how you utilize it within sex, but we'll talk about that. With just some girls who's gabbing here and have a good, good conversation. That's what it's all about, So yes, we will definitely be talking. And I want to thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate once again you coming on, the late hour.
Thank you for having me.
So, yes, no, I appreciate it. So we're going to be talking, because we have another podcast as well, hubby and I. So we'll talk about the After Dark, and then we'll talk about our other podcast. So yeah, so we'll have you on those. But be on the lookout for that email. I'm going to send you that with that guest, website. And once again, I just can't thank you enough. I feel like if I keep talking, it'll be 3 o'clock in the morning before we get off. So I will let you go. Thank you. To your fiance and get on to your evening. All right.
Have a good night.
We'll be talking soon, but everybody, thank you so much. You know where to find me. All right.
Stay healthy.
Thanks so much. You too.